black coffee.
This is the Kavoya Coffee Podcasting Network. Coffee people talking to coffee people about coffee and things coffee adjacent. This episode of The Exchange is brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee, where coffee is always a collaborative voyage. Welcome to The Exchange, hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey. This is a milestone, episode 50 of The Exchange, and the topic is Roasters Entering Retail. We know you're thinking about it, right? Isn't retail where all the fun's being had in coffee, where the cool kids are? Is the FOMO making you dream about espresso machines? Well, we have a few things for you to think about before you start scratching that itch. And now, here they are, Mark and Todd.
Welcome one, welcome all to The Exchange. Mark Inman, just walking into the East Coast office here, literally right off a train to see my good pals Todd and Mike. Guys, how's it going?
Good.
It's great. How cool are you?
I don't feel cool at all. I feel like the planes, trains, and automobiles. You
don't feel like you were jet setting.
No.
Hey, last night I got stuck in Detroit.
No. It was the opposite. It was in literally if I don't have bed bugs, I'll be amazed at the hotel they put me up in. Mm. And then flying, train, Uber. And all the while sweating it because I knew in my head, I'm here for a limited amount of time and I want to cram as much recording as I can into my time here. And so I was like, I'm burning daylight. I'm wasting my friend's time. And so I felt really bad coming in here. But I'm here and we're going to make the most of it.
Highly energized. And you should know, Mark, we're here for it. We're here for it. So we are gonna get the most out of this time.
So we'll be here at 11 p.m. tonight recording.
Oh, it goes on. This will go on and on. Dinner, maybe. Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah.
Recording more? Yes. For you, our listeners. So we're here first in a run, and we got a special topic. It's one we've talked about
tangentially
in seasons gone by, but we're going to look at it from a particular angle, and this is entering retail. Now, just to put a fine point on this, a finer point than I like on the pens that I write with, a very fine point. This is existing roasters who currently, they've established their business. Regardless of their level of maturity, number of years in the game, they're an established roaster. They have their point of view. They have their wholesale customers. Maybe they're doing some, B2C by web or by, a little sort of counter, something like this.
Right.
Like a walk up at the roastery. But we're talking, when, how, and if, I guess, really to begin.
Yeah.
Getting into a full-service retail. So where do you want to begin?
Well, first off, I love this particular subject because it's the one subject that I have more conversations with my customers about than anything else. And it's a conversation that if a roaster client is going to do this, I have been at home, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., on the phone talking them through this because it's such an important topic that can make or break your business. And I have very strong opinions about it. And yes, so I think doing an entire show on this is fantastic. I'm very excited about it. But I would say first and foremost, Todd, to go through the history, at least my history in coffee, why people chose to do this in the past, in this kind of path of I'm already an established roaster. Well, it used to be the concern was you didn't want to do that because if you were a wholesale roaster, the fear was, well, I don't want to be competing against my own clients. And so they avoided doing it. And usually back in I would say the early to mid 90s, if you were thinking about retail, your accounts got very uneasy about it. And they wanted to know everything. What was it going to look like? Are you doing food? Where is it going to be? Because they were trying to wonder whether or not to keep you as a brand in their store. And so a lot of people bailed at that moment because they realized I might lose more business than I gain. And then all of a sudden around, I would say 2000, it switched to I need to establish my brand, and wholesale is not doing that because there's this big barista movement starting. I need to kind of have a standard set for my brand out there to support my wholesale. Like by getting out there and having a retail store, I'm saying this is what I'm about. This is the quality that I'm expecting of my wholesale clients, and this is the quality.
You
of the
have
coffee.
to keep with this.
Right.
That was, and that's right around my entry.
Okay.
Right. Was this kind of the emergence of the roaster retailer that demonstrated who they were, their point of view, their quality commitments, their the tenets of their brand and their marketing,
right,
based on their retail presence.
And it went to certain extremes where in the West Coast there were roasters that had to be assessed by the wholesale client, and they were tested and audited on a regular basis. And I don't know if I should out the companies that were really doing it, but I always thought like it's crazy.
You're saying the retail clients themselves were tested, or you're saying the roaster tested the retail clients?
The roaster tested the retail clients, in some cases made them pass their version of a barista training before they would allow them to wholesale their product. And then they would have snap audits where they would come in, or secret shoppers that would come in. And as a wholesale roaster, I thought this is the death of their business. This is awesome because they're being so picky that the customer is just going to walk away. It didn't happen.
Yeah, so we're talking about folks who have been roasters. They are looking on the retail side, whether from a business perspective,
Right.
I would argue all too often from a like FOMO kind of emotional perspective of, hey, I'm missing something. I don't have what the others have.
And do you think that's pretty common?
Yeah, we can all too often feel that way. I think in general, when you there's some facet of the game you're not touching, right? That certainly resonates to me. But I would also love to just go back to something you shared at the top of your rundown, this macro historical rundown, and get a little more insight. You said back in the 90s.
Are we going to attack my age here again?
No.
Yeah. Back in the 90s.
I'm just citing everything that you presented already. I mean, yes, I was 8 years old as we crested 1990.
I was a grown man. With a mortgage.
I don't even want to know that number. It just would make me feel horrendous about my life now. Getting into the 90s, you were saying there was this prevalent thing. This is interesting because when I arrived in 2006, that was around 2005, 6, 7 was really when I found myself, woke up in specialty coffee,
right,
not really having an idea what it was. But I had a distinct sense that was the case, right? Certainly where I was. So this idea that, well, if you're really a committed service provider and vendor to retailers, you can't get into the retail game.
Right.
And it's interesting because I know there were sort of paradigm shifts along the way. There were anomalies that broke down, these sort of big, larger conceptions and, got everyone thinking a new way, which was ultimately healthy, I think. But I'm curious, what led to that mentality in the first place?
Of the competition?
Just the sense that, at a time when there were far fewer specialty cafes in any given city. Like the competition was even so much less than it is now. And the sense of competition was much more fierce. The idea that hey, in a city such as San Francisco, you can't have a cafe and I have a cafe too and us do business because, my customer may be inclined to walk 3 hours to your location instead of get their cappuccino from mine. It just seems crazy.
Yeah, I think it depends on the town for starters.
100%.
Where my wholesale market was, a lot of the towns. I was on the North Sonoma County west, like coastal area. And I did go into San Francisco and larger cities, but predominantly these were towns 15,000, 20,000 people and kind of small. So, and I think the retailer, the pure retail cafe back then that was getting into specialty felt like I need everything going in my direction, and I'm not roasting, and I don't plan on roasting, but I certainly don't want a roaster who I think has more like at their disposal, more resources coming after me. So I actually had a retail store out on the coast, and it was in the middle of nowhere. It was in a little town called Freestone, and a good buddy of mine had a cafe in Bodega where the Birds, the Alfred Hitchcock movie, was shot. And Freestone is where Tom Waits lived. So he was...
What's he building in there?
Well, he was recording Bone Machine when I had my store. And when the studio musicians would get out, they would come down to the I mean, there was only 2 businesses in the town of Freestone. They would come down to get coffee, or I did ice cream and some pastry and stuff. And they would tell me, "Oh, do you know the guy? Do you know Tom?" Like, "Yeah, a little bit." "What's his deal?" Like, he goes, I'm a studio drummer and I come with my nice drums, and Tom's like, "Oh no, these sound too sharp," and he like getting them all out of tune, and he wants these flat sounds. And they're like, at first we thought this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but then we hear, he gets it. He's like orchestrating this crazy thing. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic, but I had to beg, plead, and make my case with every wholesale customer that where I'm located is so far out in the middle of nowhere, I am of zero threat. And that's my only store I'm planning on doing. It was merely to be in touch with people in my community. That was it. So it was the idea that, well, I'm a roaster. I have access to green coffee. I'm traveling to Origin. If I started doing retail, I'm a massive threat. And so they always put this barrier on me. And I was fine with it. It didn't bother me. I wasn't eager to do any large-scale retail. I was spooked out of it by my employer before I started my company. And when brands started doing it, roasted brands started doing it on a little higher scale because they felt I need to establish my brand and to establish my standards. I think that at that point, I said I'm not doing that. And I do feel like in hindsight, I missed out, and I probably should have done it. I did it in a different way with a different retail concept, but it did hurt my wholesale growth because people say, "Oh, well, Intelli or Stumptown or, we know how good their coffee is because we've seen their stores." And that's why they chose to grab them as a wholesale.
Yeah, you're almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't, unless you jumped in full ass. Right. Like, you couldn't really reap the benefits.
Well, and I just felt it was, you could be great in one area. It's very hard to spread yourself that thin. Yeah. And something suffers, and do you want your wholesale brand to suffer? I didn't. So I just felt like retail would suck all of my energy away because there's so many moving parts to retail. It's very, very intense obligation. And my wholesale roasting and my brand was number one. That was my number one passion. That's all I cared about. And retail would have just been a fun hobby for me. Now, clients now that say, I want to do this, I try to talk them out of it 100% of the time as don't let it distract from your core principles and your core competencies. Understand how expensive it is to get into this world and understand the why. Why are you getting into this? What is the reasoning? Like you said, is it just FOMO? That's not good enough. Is it brand establishment? Is it setting standards because your wholesale customers have, people complain about your coffee because most of your wholesale clients do it poorly? Are there cheaper ways to address that problem?
Yeah, no, it's interesting looking over the arc of time. You see kind of the full extreme ends of the argument that I would imagine most of our dear listeners who are, in this conversation either with self or nearby neighbor within their business. They're sort of asking the question, hey, is this for us? And, definitely if the question is strictly based on like a fear of missing out, as with basing any choice or directional on fear of anything, it's a bad way to begin. But Yeah. So, I mean, I'm hearing from what you're saying that you are staunchly opposed to roasters getting into retail. Is that it? Finito?
No.
Episode over?
No.
Where do we go from here?
No, I am staunchly opposed to doing it unless the reasonings or the rationale is clear. And before you just say, I'm going to do your standard cafe that it seems like carbon copies in the United States. Are there creative ways to make the statement that you're trying to make that can be cheaper, that could be more streamlined, that could be more impactful? It could be pop-ups. It can be a food truck. It could be, an events thing. It could be a collab, with somebody. Like, let's explore these other options that can be cheaper rather than a brick and mortar because, as you have a lot more experience in this world than I do. Once you choose a location and you start to do construction, you just can't up and move that location cheaply if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, well, that's the caveat because I have done that.
You have done that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The bottom line, it is not simple.
No.
And changing course is very difficult.
Right.
And, if retail is not a passion and something that you build infrastructure for, it will crush you. I mean, it is
easily. I've seen it
soul
happen to
crushing.
dozens.
So yeah, let's start let's take a little more time with what you're saying. So the roaster who is sitting here and saying, it's somewhere between, at worst, I'm feeling like I'm missing out to, at best, hey, I have something to offer my customer that is more connected. I feel like our brand is more resonant. There is more potential in our marketplace to engage a consumer directly. Let's use that maybe as our kind of definitive element. Hey, I want to sell direct to the consumer. This could be coming out of a passion to really tell a more full story about your coffees to your consumer. This could be having a nearby community, maybe in the neighborhood the roastery exists, maybe just in general as you're a resident within the community that you started your business and you have a passion for that community. I mean, all of these things are totally valid, and I think are really great starting places for starting any effort to work more directly with people. So what are the most basic ways you can? You spit out a few. One being farmers market pop-ups, art space, various. I mean, some of my favorite shops that were most inspirational to me were pop-ups in music venues and art galleries. I love that. So cool. So what are a few other things that come to mind where people can kind of make a foray into this without a huge investment and taking out a lease or a new mortgage? Well,
I think those two mentioned are one. Where I live in Sonoma County, and leases are astronomically high. For example, there is a corner wine shop that the lease is $22,000 a month doing tastings. There's no way you're going to ever make a profit at $22,000 a month lease. And there are cafes that have that. So what we see are dinner restaurants that have a bar area and are now leasing the bar area to a coffee house in the morning to say, hey, pick up some of our lease and you have this area where our staff is gone and we're going to close off the dining room. That's a great idea. I'm a huge fan of a food truck, a mobile. And I think, especially Mike, both of you have seen this, Lavazza or La San Marco will sometimes do advertisements in their booths. And it's they show these old coffee trucks of the 50s that have these fantastic design with stools that flipped out. I haven't really seen a coffee company go crazy with a very high concept food truck and make a statement. I think that would be huge. Now, I know in New York, there was a chain called the Mud Truck that was a popular chain of cafes. They had no brick and mortar as far as I know. That, to me, if you don't like your location, you move it. And the food truck can be used for catering. It can be used for events. It's such a versatile coffee house, for all intents and purposes. And as a coffee consumer, an avid coffee consumer, I would be impressed with a food truck that looked really stylish. I would go to it regularly if it was near me versus a cafe, which, even cafes I love the most, I get somewhat bored with the decor and I get bored with kind of their menu. It's like you just kind of get over it and you want to try something different. And a food truck that's really stretching the boundaries tends to capture my interest because it's so unusual a little more. And yeah, I would say events, being an event person where you go to any type of, thing and you have some mobile setup that can easily break up, break down, that's a great way to engage with clients, especially if the goal is to get wholesale and some retail out of it. Yeah, those are the ones that come to my mind off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, one obvious is to have open hours at your roastery. I mean,
well, even if you can do that, some roasteries are set up in a way that to do food service is tough.
Yeah.
And then one more that I forgot, vending machines. I'm actually somewhat surprised you're not seeing, like when cold brew took off, like Stumptown was like one of the big players out of the gate, and they did the stubbies, is there a name for that bottle?
Yeah, it's a stubby.
It's called a stubby.
Yeah, like a red stripe beer.
And I was somewhat surprised that they went that route and not the route of a can, because you could put, like in Japan, all the cold brews in vending machines. And I think in vending machines in the U.S., you could do cold brew and you could do cans of beans, and that nobody's kind of done that route either, which I think is relatively low barrier entry to have vending machines.
To do cans of beans.
Yeah. Well, no, but to put it in a vending machine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting. I mean, I feel like the attraction for so many to specialty coffee has been like low barriers to entry, which any sort of big equipment kind of flies in the face of, right? Whether that's like a big roaster or industrial equipment, big like weigh and fill packaging or you know specific sort of packaging line type stuff. But I feel like some of these like kiosk type, vending type stations would kind of slot under that, where I mean, really you got to go completely in with a certain amount of money to actually have one, let alone many.
Yeah, but a vending machine's 10, 12 grand. They're not prohibitive compared to that's your espresso machine on your counter in your cafe.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's one vending machine, and where?
Got to start somewhere. Well, I mean, yeah, you have to answer that question. Like if I live near two universities, so a college campus would be for cold brew would be one of them.
Yeah, cold brew and ready to drink lattes and things like this, I think make that very compelling.
Right.
Either way, I think there could be, much to your point about super stylish trucks, like there seems to be a lot of opportunity for that, but the amount of hustle that it takes, I mean, setup, breakdown, location one, setup, breakdown, location two, it takes a lot of hustle.
Yeah. It becomes your focus. And so, I go back to the first question, do you have the people power to diversify, because you can't pay attention to that and your roastery. There's too many moving parts, especially in that world. And then one more I just thought of, and it's a business model that I've always liked, but there's a company called Soap. I don't know, the person who owns it's some, influencer or whatever the hell it is. But they're laundromats / cafes. Now, I saw this in Tasmania in 2003, and there used to be a place called Brainwash in San Francisco that was a cafe / laundromat. But now this Soap is Southern California, and this chain is exploding.
And it's a cafe.
Within a laundromat.
Yeah, within a laundromat. See, I've seen like dive bar laundromats.
Oh, that's cool.
Which makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I mean,
that actually is more attractive. But yeah, no, I think, these types of things, I think any time that you engage people that are doing their thing, right? I think we have to get over the idea, not completely, but I think we have to accept that most cafes are going to get the lion's share of their business from people who it's convenient to come into their cafe.
Right.
Like it's just by and large their volume. So if you have like anything full-time, part-time, clever, aligned for activity or what have you, that engages this group that's sort of like a captive audience because they're there. Like my son is probably like many of our listeners who have young kids that are, whippersnappers and on their way up. My son is super serious about soccer and plays, 6 days a week. We're like at some place. And, you start to go to these
indoor, outdoor,
all year round.
Doesn't matter.
So Monday night when you were trapped in Detroit, he had an hour and 45 minutes outside in the wind and rain.
Wow.
For training. That's just a practice. But I just mean to say, like, on game day in some of these places, tournaments, there are loads of disposable dollars in people's pockets just sitting there like killing time.
Like a soccer Saturday, you're there for hours, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a captive audience.
So it's just to say, like, the idea that, hey, if I approach this community and I'm like, I want you to understand and care about the producing partner, the original owner of this coffee, or the nuance of this processing methodology or whatever. Like, if my goal is only, hey, I have to get this through to this community,
right?
It could be utter failure. But if I'm looking at something and saying, oh, I have a good method that could be fun, that clicks with people, and that is here and available for this community, just that one as an example, not as a focal point. I think those become really good ideas for like, hey, this is an awesome way to expand a business.
Right.
But all that said, I think the biggest mistake you can make as you begin any effort into retail, whether that's like a little counter in your existing space, right? Little coffee counter that people can walk in and have drinks, right? Super minimal, like maybe you even already have a computer set there for ripping, shipping labels off for your orders. Let's say you don't have to invest in almost anything. All you have to do is have someone there who has the time, energy, and wherewithal to say hello, explain what's on the menu, and then either make it, pack it, deliver it, whatever, hand it to this person.
Right.
It sounds crazy simple, but like I have been in those roasteries that is an option and it is unstaffed. And it is the perfect example of what you're talking about, where if you do not build the capacity into the team, if you do not like have someone whose like expertise is to run whatever scope you're tackling, It cannot just be something that you physically set up and assume will happen on its own.
It will not.
So, and that is multiplied exponentially as you get into a more sort of full, broadly encompassing retail program. Maybe it's a full food service menu.
Right.
Maybe you have a kitchen. Well, a kitchen, you need a chef. You need a team supporting said chef and all of these things. And it becomes very, very complicated very quickly.
And I would suggest to the budding coffee professional out there listening, especially the one that has an interest in the retail side of coffee, that in many cases, like in my case, if I had an eager employee approach me and say, I know you've been kicking tires on this idea, I would love to run this. I would love to be a part of it. I can't say almost most of the time, but many times they're going to put you in charge because they don't have the capacity. They're looking for the person with passion, and it could be a career-changing opportunity for you. Even if you didn't stay there, it would teach you to do it, and whether or not you wanted to start your own thing or take that to somewhere else and say, look, I built XX brand up, and now I'm out and I'm looking to do it here. I think that if you have dialogues with your employer, if this is your passion, those opportunities going to be there for you, because that's the biggest impediment that I see is finding the staff with passion that wants to do it. Retail has high turnover rates, traditionally lower wages. You have to give some incentive that makes sense to somebody. And to me, opportunity and career path is the enticement initially. You could even take that further and do profit share if they did really well. But I think just popping a retail and just hoping staff will gravitate, and then going out in the street and hiring people and realizing that, it's when you have 20% turnover a year, it's brutally hard to do it. But if you have people motivated internally, and I believe you should always give your staff an opportunity to rise up the ranks. That's a perfect way to do it.
I would, my 2 cents would be, don't do it unless you have a merchant's heart. And if you have a merchant's heart, you know what I mean when I say merchant's heart. If you don't, you might be wondering, what does he mean?
I'm asking, what do you mean?
Oh, I get it.
It's a customer walks through the door at the end of your day. Are you energized, or does your energy go down?
Yeah. Right.
And are you fascinated by the business? Are you fascinated by the operations? You know them when you meet them. I mean, interviewing store managers, that's what we were always looking for.
Right.
Somebody who they were here, not because it was the only thing they can do, because they had a heart for the business. So I would say that. And then also, I'm a huge fan of Inside the Roastery. One of the best coffee houses I was ever around was the Drip Coffee House attached to Batdorf and Bronson's Roastery in Olympia.
That place is awesome.
Yeah. It was and of course, dedicated staff.
Right.
They didn't, nobody there worked in the roastery.
Right.
And it only did drip coffee and pastries, but no espresso. It was very popular. So anyway, those are my 2 cents. I mean, it's great to have when you build up retail. If you're a roaster, it becomes a feeder for your roasting team. You reach a point where there's really hardly anybody, if anybody, working your roastery who didn't come up through retail. So that's one of the good points. But it is extremely, extremely difficult. I could not do it, if I was an owner or if it was my primary responsibility. I was always on the periphery. I was part of a large team. All the responsibilities were really diversified among the team. But
you could have done what I had done, which was the bean merchant, the hardware. Your passion would have been there. You could have waxed poetic about, the coffees that you have available, whole bean, and machinery that you really geeked out about. I think you didn't want to be a food service worker, and I don't blame you at all for that.
That's another thing is don't prepare food unless you absolutely have to. I mean, regulations change from city to city, but let them microwave their own bagels if they need to.
Right.
But don't prepare food, because then you're in a new business, and also
you're in the restaurant business.
Yeah, and you just added 10 competitors on your street that you wouldn't have if you didn't prepare food. But just a couple thoughts I have.
Now, Todd, you actually were a part of a food preparation cafe. Like, you took it to a farther extreme than the two of us ever have.
I mean, my entry point into coffee was through a scratch bakery.
Yeah, which is insane.
So I mean, I my first job was in food service at an independent, fine dining restaurant, quote unquote fine dining, at least for the time. So my first job, I was a busboy on the weekends and a host on weekdays, and so that was sort of built into me as hey, this is what you do. This was the work that made sense, which is a grueling hustle. But as a 16-year-old kid at the time making the money I was making, I was like, this is awesome.
Oh, when you're young, it's great. But coming up and being involved with a roaster and the donut shop.
Oh, sure.
You've seen how difficult and challenging that side of the business can be.
Oh, for sure. No, and I think that coming from what was coming from restaurants, getting introduced to an elevated coffee program, which was really just a small piece.
Yeah.
At the place where I entered, if we're honest about it, the coffee wasn't even a focal point or a hugely important portion. I mean, there was a range of beverages and the equipment was good. The quality of the coffee coming into the shop was very good. We were trained. It was like, but as it related to like percentage of overall sales in dollars, it was relatively small, and it was an accompaniment to much of the other stuff going on, the full service food menu with like a kitchen with 4 chefs at any given time. Right. For the bakery and all of the really high end pastries and laminated and, all that stuff. That was, that was why people were coming in, and coffee went with it. Right. Right. So it's interesting, flash forward, and I go and I work for a roaster. Yep. Interesting to note, no retail. Later got into retail and chose some really unique ways to
How
do
much
it.
later?
This was even after I was there. So the entire time I was there was no retail.
So you think how many years were they a pure wholesaler before?
They were probably a wholesaler for 12 or 13 years, maybe more, before getting there. And I don't think it was always out of the question. I think the real consideration seemed, again, this isn't internal to me. It was not mine. Right. But I think the real consideration, which was a good one, was like, what makes this different? Right. Like, why would we do this? Right. Right. And ultimately, they did it in a way that I think was really authentic to themselves and offered something that didn't exist anywhere within their reach as a wholesaler. Sure. It was very different. I mean, of course, there's drip coffee and there's espresso beverages and whatever. But yeah, it was really interesting as I started businesses that still exists today. The point of view was, we need to dramatically limit what we do with food. Right. We need to dramatically limit the scope of the menu. Right. And part of that was because like the cafe itself, the coffee company, had 60 square feet to start with. Right. So like, how many types of milk can you put in a lowboy refrigerator? Right. You can't put more than one, right? Right. Or, stuff like that. So there was some like circumstantial stuff that actually was like very, very helpful to narrowing the range of things that we were attempting to do. But even with like, the bakery, it's, there is a point of view that was chosen early on that it was like, no, there's no espresso program.
Which I think is smart.
Filter coffee, flash brewed cold coffee, and expeditious counter service, really thoughtfully prepared baked goods, like really, really well done, scratch made fully, not just appearing scratch, like to the detail. But yeah, hey, we want to be able to like make this simple, fast, expeditious, focus. And I do think that stuff goes a long way when someone is deciding to go down that road. I
think that point right there is probably, if you have any takeaway from this episode, that point is the strongest one. And this is where I find the clients that I work with get into huge trouble, is they say, I need to get into retail. They get into it against my recommendation. And I'm going to use one example. I'm not going to mention their name, but they got into this co-relationship. It was a different type of retail place that allowed this person to build a kiosk in there. Get the terms of that ironclad, not just on a handshake and it's cool bro setup. Have a lease with terms because you're investing money into this build out. That was mistake number one. Mistake number two was they were saying, oh my God, they would talk to me and they'd say, oh my God, I'm working so many hours. We just started adding food. We're adding like empanadas because a friend makes empanadas. And I'm like, what does empanadas have to do with coffee? Well, they're really good though. Okay. There's a lot of great food out there. What's the point of your retail? Is that empanada pointing to your wholesale beans or the style of coffee? No, not at all. It's totally off the
opportunistic.
Yeah, but But food is where you bleed money in retail.
If you're not making it.
Yeah.
And if you're making it and you're not like a weather person and nailing your projections.
Yeah, they were buying it from a preparer.
Yeah.
And prepared food is the death of it. When I see cafes starting to add, when I was a wholesaler and my customers were adding a lot of prepared food, I knew they were about to go bankrupt, and I would start to collect my past dues. But there is the best cafes, in my opinion, are the ones that have that narrow focus, very simple menus, not a lot of options. Don't let the customer dictate like, well, one person wants pea milk. Well, we're not doing green pea milk. We're doing an oat milk, a regular milk, and that's it. Or even this most extreme case I'm seeing online now, which cracks me up. I think they're Australian, but I think they're doing it in the UK. It's called flat white or F off, but the word is spelled out. And that's the entire retail concept. It's only flat whites. There's no short blacks. There's no and if you ask for anything, they tell you to F off. That's like they yell at the whole staff. And it's gotten a lot of traction online, and they're doing more and more pop-ups of this concept now. But that's one item. That's an extreme version. But, if I went to a cafe and they said, I don't have, cashew milk, all I have is oat milk, you're not going to lose the customer. I mean, if you do, that's a customer you don't want. But offering 50 million things, I think purposely buying a small fridge and a small case. Jay Carragher famously had the, I'm going to lose the name, Harishi, the sushi refrigerated kind of horizontal refrigerators and that's all he would have for his pastry. This very small streamlined case, and that was it. He kept it very focused. And I think the more you do that, to me, the more impressive and cohesive the concept looks. And you have the possibility of making money and surviving versus the person who's offering everything to everybody.
No, it's interesting though, because I think if we talk about it in one way, and I'm not suggesting you're doing this, but I do think like you could listen to this and you could say, oh well, this is so easy. These guys are just gabbing about how simple that is and how they, people should just be able to see so clearly, like, hey, don't go down that road and don't make this mistake. The interesting thing is I think the thing we have to acknowledge, and if you're listening and this is you, I hope this really speaks and comes through, is like, I think the hardest part about that, because it's completely and utterly true, it is the cornerstone. If you cannot choose this point of view in a super distilled way, make decisions confidently and peacefully with yourself, and let things roll off of you. Let people not be for you. Let certain customers choose you and others choose not. It's not you're going to have a very hard go at best. But I think it comes through some of the things that are really common as a great operator of a wholesale roastery, right? You have much fewer, bigger stars in your sky as customers, stars in your sky, so to speak, right? You have people that you should be listening to. Hey, we need delivery such and such a time on such and such a day. Okay, let's restructure and make that work for you. You might represent 10% of our business. We'll do that, right? And that's a good yes. Right? So like you're coming from this world in many cases, especially as a seasoned wholesale roastery operator. Let's say maybe you even do you have a portion of your business is white label. Right? Smart thing to do. Hey, you drop ship us those bags. We'll do, we'll do a proprietary blend, a very custom roasting. You're saying yes. So you're building these muscles, right?
But that same person's also in trouble.
I think that this is in many, many cases a critical part of loads of successful roasters, right?
You think a lot of successful roasters are currently doing this? I would argue that.
You can, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I just want to, before we move on to your argument, which you're welcome to make and Mike can cut out.
I think Mike is going to have a very unique opinion about this. I had myself, my own wholesale brand. I started with 9 coffees. Now, granted, I was only doing organic, so I was much more limited than a traditional roaster. And then a good friend of mine who had a roastery up north had 128 SKUs. And I thought that was insane. How are you keeping even track of all these green coffees you're bringing in? And they all can't be selling great. Like when are you pruning the tree? And I found myself, I got up to 32. And then same thing. I'm like, I am drowning in complexity. I was also doing white label and private label, but I kept that very focused on a handful of clients. And when I pared it back down to 12, my life got exponentially easier and I was making more money. And I could have even pruned that tree even more. So I have yet to see the wholesale roaster who's doing over 50 SKUs that is doing well.
I'm not suggesting that you're carrying more SKUs. I'm not suggesting that you have to have an infinite number of
Well, you have to if you're doing
inputs.
private custom blends.
Not if custom blend X is the same as custom blend A
that's
is the same as custom blend Y. It's not a trick.
Yeah, but that's fine.
It's not a trick because at the end of the day, most coffee is going out through a sales organization that is about the brand more than about the coffee.
Right.
Or it's about like solid coffee with a perspective somehow wrapped in a brand. I'm not saying that's cool. I'm not trying to like get our listeners to team up with you on me in some future public space.
But if you
San
do
Diego
want to do that,
like
please
argue
let us know. Yeah.
But
who you side with? Yeah.
I'm saying simply when well managed, these are hugely lucrative parts of many, many programs. And I do work with a good range of roasters across the quality spectrum who have very prized white label portions of their businesses.
Right.
I'm just suggesting that it's not something to be ashamed of or to feel some degree of wrongness or inadequacy over, because
that's what it's about.
I think a lot of people who've honed their muscles and skills in this space, it's not intuitive to then go into retail. You're applying your intuition and you're saying, okay, a customer who's coming in 3 seconds before close, I'm going to be nice and I'm going to be accepting. But then I can do whatever you want. Like that mentality will kill you.
100%.
Though it is something that can open up business in loads of different ways as a roaster. But
it's something you have to weigh. And I think I want to go back for the listener here who's going to side, and please side. In both cases, what we're hoping, my goal is, as a business owner, you should be doing the least amount of work to have the best chance of survival. And the more distilled, the better. That's my philosophy. I think some of the greatest brands out there have the most streamlined menus possible. I am attracted to those businesses. Like in San Francisco, Grafeo, dark light decaf. That's our product line. I love it. In-N-Out Burger in California. Lines out the door there's no chicken sandwiches. There's no fish sandwiches. There's no, it's
let someone else do them.
You could have anything you want as long as it's Rwanda.
Seattle had a lot of the brands that were up there, like Vivace and Vita, had very streamlined, straightforward points of view. I mean, they all did something slightly different, but like San Francisco had a lot of companies that were doing everything to all people. And that drove me nuts outside of the few streamlined ones that were out there. But the predominant big brands in the Bay Area were just like a marketing person threw up all over a menu offering. It was just too many things, and I viscerally rebelled against that.
Well, now that our listeners are siding with you, and
not necessarily, someone may think I'm too idealistic.
I think there's more. It's not to say there's more nuance with what I'm trying to say. I'm suggesting that I think you're working with fewer customers in more of a direct way, regardless of whether that means you're bringing them to a product, an existing product in your repertoire or not. I think, those softer things, the delivery timeframes, the production day, we had a huge week and we need an extra delivery this week. Those things you're accustomed to saying, oh yeah, of course. Like this is where we add value.
As a business owner,
I'll send our tech over to fix your machine. Of course,
right.
We'll do a special training, all the things, not even so much bending the product, but like a lot of the things up to and not without, in all cases, changing the product or what package it's delivered in.
And I totally hear that. When I first started in wholesale, my business partner was of the mindset of, oh, this restaurant called us on a Sunday, they're out of coffee, and we got to do it, and we kept making these concessions. And I felt like we're turning into a 7 days a week, 24-hour day business. If we don't set standards, we're letting the customer dictate our business operations. And there's a point where the owners can't do it all. You're going to have to start bringing in staff, especially like tech stuff when machines go down. And we had a machine repair. We sold equipment and we repaired it. Many times on a Sunday, we're getting our guy to drive to L.A. from the Bay Area to go fix a Titan brewer. And it's just like, we should contract with somebody down. Like I was always looking for the elegant solution, and he kept it as messy and complicated. And we had staff that were furious at us because we were never saying no. Everything was, of course. And I told them, thank God we don't have retail, because you would open it up at 10 p.m. if you saw a group of people standing outside.
Yeah, if you happen to be like sitting at a table in there and someone knocks on the door, all of a sudden you're open.
You're firing up the espresso machine.
But I think that, the reality of that, when you have 10% of your invoice value week to week with that point of contact, that is a fundamentally different type of conversation to enter than if you have like exactly like 0.001% of your weekly sales with that person.
Well said.
And so like to even get close to entertaining something that would move the rudder on the proverbial retail ship, like you're just nowhere close with a single customer. It doesn't even matter how many days in a row they come in.
Right.
Like you just cannot even begin to go there. So, but yeah, to your point, like I actually side with you. I think you have to have strong, consistent demonstration of like your boundaries as a company. Otherwise, you will drift.
I would add that if you're an experienced roaster, but you've never worked in any type of retail, you have to go and get some retail experience somewhere. It doesn't even have to be a coffee house. Just working at a counter at a deli somewhere, you have to have that experience before you.
Yeah, go and trade shifts at like one of your favorite wholesale customer shops. Like you have to be exposed to the pace of things, to how it's without that, or even the ability to appreciate it, it is invariably going to be a death by 1,000 stings.
I hope this example though that you're bringing up, I mean, if you're a wholesaler who has never done retail, it's bananas that you would even consider going down this road.
No, but it looks great. Think about it. Like all that, when you are in a cave somewhere in some industrial park with like a windowless room that's attached to a loading dock, and you've been there for years, and you're like, man, specialty coffee's happening over there.
Yeah.
And we don't get to enjoy any of that, right? Like it looks good.
Yeah,
of course you want to do it. Roaster who's never done retail, I love you. We're not talking down to you. Like it makes sense that you want to do it, but yeah,
be cautious. Be cautious.
Go get some practice.
Get a lot of practice, and then I would say from a concept standpoint, retail is incredibly competitive. And the bar has been set extremely high in most communities. I would say that in the early 90s when I got in, people that threw up a funky stand and, not the best equipment and just kind of figured it out as they went along, got away with it for too long. Nowadays, don't try to go cheap on look, on concept, on feel, on layout. Hire professionals. This is your point of view, your perspective, your statement you're making in the marketplace as to what your brand's about. I cannot stress enough how you have to go large as far as having it really well thought out. The days of shoestring budgeting and just figuring it out as you go along are long gone, and you can't do it. You'll guarantee die. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do a shoestring budget concept look, but it has to be well-intentioned, well thought out, and well planned, which is expensive to do. But hire the right people.
When I was in the early 90s, I was doing a lot of open mic poetry readings in Long Beach, California. And it was literally on the circuit. There was a coffee house that was it was all patio furniture, and there were two sawhorses, and the espresso machine was sitting on top of it. And it wasn't a concept. That was just they took all their savings, got an espresso machine, their lease, and the rest of it was what they could find.
I mean, we had a very popular place in our community that was like a roadside stand, espresso bar, and all the tables were utility company giant wooden spools where the wire went on. Yeah. Those were the tables, like these huge, and it's like, that looks like crap. And it was all this mishmash furniture, and that was their thing. And it worked until it doesn't work. And then you have like a blue bottle that's super slick and cool come into town, and you're done. There are some people that romanticize the really funky cafe, but if you go too funky, like back in the day, it's just nowadays I think about these businesses that did that. It's like, you would never survive today. You'd be done. Yeah.
Roaster, beware. Retail is not is not to be taken lightly.
It's not to be taken lightly. I think in some cases it may be necessary for you. Just really think it out well, have a clear concept, understand all of the nooks and crannies, and understand that you're getting into an expensive endeavor to have everything researched. Don't leave a stone unturned, and never, never, never do a handshake deal. We'll figure it out later. Those are the stories that I always hear take these companies down, when they don't have the details worked out before they execute.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been listening to the Exchange Coffee Podcast, hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey, and produced by me, Mike Ferguson. The Exchange theme music is Exchange by Lo-Fi Zoo. Here comes your postscript, but stick around for some housekeeping on the other side.
Welcome one, welcome.
I actually heard the same thing before you said it. I was like, come one and all, you're here for the exchange.
Yeah. Okay.
If you've enjoyed this or any show on the Kavoya Coffee Podcasting Network, please do all the things. Like, rate, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. Right now. I'll wait. You'll find a link to our short listener survey in the show notes. And if you haven't already, please take the survey.
Please, I'm begging you.
Finally, remember two things. You can always email me with thoughts, questions, ideas, and recipes at mike.ferguson@kavoya.com. And Black Coffee is performed by the one and only Ella Fitzgerald. This has been a CCPN production.